Good afternoon and welcome to another Select stream. My name is Jig and today we will be looking at SharePoint and how it is so much more than a document store. My special guest today is Nick Ellis, our amazing digital transformation consultant. Hello Nick, how are you today?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. I'm just thinking I need to get that photo updated.
No,
much longer hair and no beard on that one, so yeah.
I think that's the case for everyone a little bit, really.
Yes.
So we're looking at SharePoint today. Could you give us a little bit more detail about what we'll be looking at?
Yes, SharePoint is actually 20 years old this week, which I noticed somewhere the other day. It goes back to a on-premise piece of software a very long time ago that was originally designed as a file storage application to move file storage off of web servers and onto off of old file and print servers rather onto a web type experience, but internally within a business. It used to be on-premise because there was no cloud 20 years ago, so it was all on-premise servers and the like. So and it has evolved. It has evolved massively. I would argue, and in fact, had you been on the meeting I was on immediately prior to this, I indeed was arguing with somebody from Microsoft saying I think the name SharePoint actually is kind of a bit misleading now because people associate it with that old experience. So we're going to be looking at all the things that have evolved into SharePoint, not everything over those 20 years, you'll be pleased to hear, but some of the new stuff that people will perhaps not be using, and how the integration with Teams, which is a much newer product, it's about 4.5 years old, but has become absolutely ubiquitous in the world of working from home. And I think as people have changed business processes to use Teams by default, I can't see it going backwards. Firstly, I don't believe that we're going to go back to the office in the way that we were before, 5 days a week, everyone in the office all the time. I don't think that's going to happen. And secondly, even if we do, as I say, business processes have changed and Teams has sort of embedded itself into them now. I'm not sure that there'll be a huge amount of value in unpicking that. So yes, we're going to be looking at various features of Teams, of SharePoint and how it integrates with Teams, and things like Planner and lists and home sites, all sorts of stuff. It's going to be great.
Oh, it sounds absolutely amazing. So shall we? Do you want me to share your desktop for you?
Yeah, why not?
Let's do that. Very slowly. I always find that people don't get sites in SharePoint and how that's important, how that's always critical.
Yeah, that is yes, it's a common thing. The SharePoint is a service, it is not a site. And I know that sounds really kind of IT nerdy, the difference, but well, I suppose an analogy might be company pages within Facebook, where everybody knows Facebook is the big massive thing, but within that you can find the Select Technology page, I believe.
Yes, you can.
You can no doubt find the Microsoft page. You can find the the page for your local leisure centre, the page for your local community group. I'm waving that way because that's the community that I'm a member of, and so on. And those are little kind of sites within Facebook. Well, SharePoint does the same thing, where it has sites within SharePoint. They're all interconnected, but you can break permissions up. So you can say somebody in your business, maybe you've got a finance team, you'll probably want to be reasonably constrained. I want everyone in the business to know all the details of the finance. So you can set up the permissions. So maybe it's the company directors, the finance manager and the finance clerk or whatever have access to that site. Then you've got another site that is for a different team, but also you can have sites that run across teams but are to do with a specific project, and we're going to be looking at that in some detail today. But the idea is that you can sort of stand up a site and go, this is the site for this project, so this is where whoever's working on this project, we've got access to that information. So the way to think of sites, as I say, is that they are they can be, I've seen them used hierarchically, this is the site for this team, or they can be kind of subject driven. Here is the site which is knowledge management for your products that you sell, or a specific project, or marketing that runs up wider than your marketing team because you don't want to draw other people in, which, as you know, Jig, is a way we use it. So and hopefully by the end of this, sites will be it'll be a bit clearer what I mean, because I'm going to demonstrate 2 different sites in the course of this webinar. So I'll crack on with that, I think. So what we're looking at here is teams, in fact. So I said share my page. We've jumped to the end. There you go. So this is the project site, and then separately you'll see, so we've got here like 4 different sites within SharePoint. So we've got an all company one, we've got one called the landing, which is like a news communication site, a project site, and then actually this has been deleted and replaced with this, so not sure why that's still there. So let's have a look at this, the landing. So within this site, this has been marked as a home page, and that basically just gives you a bit of extra functionality here, which I'll talk about in a minute. This is pretty much the standard template. I've done a certain amount of work to add some functionality to this page, but when you go give me a new site, you're going to get something that looks pretty much like this, and all of these links here, this is unchanged. You can make these links obviously point to anything you want. So if I were to edit this page, I can say this one here, let's have a look at that. So whoops, that one there rather. Let's have a look at that. It tells me where it's going to link to. We can change the text, we can add background images or color blocks, and so on, and the colors are set by the theme of the site, which I'm not going to talk about a great deal here because it's complicated, but you can rethink them and change the colors if you like. So all of this is editable. You can point this at anything you want, you can replace with any image you want, and so on. It's just a nice visual, eye-catching way of top of your page. Here's the stuff that I want people to think about. Yeah,
because we've got we've got our own intranet called Select Hub, and it is so simple just to twist it into whatever design we want to do it, and change the images and add the text. Yeah. We're marketing, and we do it daily. It's that easy. You don't need any IT skills at all, really.
Yeah, well, I wish I do value it that much, but yeah, no, I agree. And for the users, sort of managing the content of a page, the idea is, yeah, you don't need IT skills to manage the content of a page. You do need a certain amount of IT skill to make sure that permissions are set up right in the background. But yes, as a sort of day-to-day user managing the content, you don't at all. As we scroll down the page, you can see I've got a news section here. So by default, every page will have a news section. You think of it like a blog, basically, and you can write your articles as you wish, and they will every time you publish an article, it will sort of add it into the top of the list here, and this will show 3 or 5, I think, from memory. So that's a good way of pushing news and information and updates. So my role, I spend a lot of time consulting on site, or well, used to be on site. It's starting to be on site again. And commonly what I do is, because I'm out there kind of embedded into the customer for a bit, I use this functionality to share information back with my colleagues back in the office. So, oh, well, I've been to see this customer and they said this, this and this. It's a nice way of publishing that kind of a thing out, keeping people up to date with what's going on. You've got events, so you can You can use this section to add events into a calendar. It doesn't generate a calendar here as such. You can see add a name, you can add a header image if you want, date, time, location, etc. All the usual stuff you would expect from an event. So if I just jump back to the home page, although it doesn't create a calendar itself, you do get this little link here. So this one here, which is actually for this specific event that we're in now, that's going to download a little calendar file so that I can add that into my calendar if I so wish. So it's really, again, without forcing things into people's calendar, there you go. So you can publish information like that and allow people to add that as they wish. And then there is documents. You know, the documents are still there, still a function, still a very important function of SharePoint. I'm going to come back to the documents piece in a minute because there's quite a lot to discuss around there. That's my calendar because I've just started out. And then down the bottom, this is a little links section. Now, you can order this in any way you like. So these kind of pages here, you can say, actually, I've changed my mind. I want documents above events. Fine. I want news. Actually, I think news I'll put over here in this column. Fine. And you can just rejig this, as you were saying. It's really easy. It doesn't require a lot of IT skill. It's all very drag and drop, very intuitive. Yeah. One thing I will draw attention to is this. This is a form. Obviously, you can see it's a form. This is built using Microsoft Forms, and this, if I just add a new customer in, honestly, I'm just making that part up as I go along. Word.supplies.co.uk, and
it's really easy to add a form in.
It is really easy
because it's all you do is create your form in Forms as normal, go into here, click Add section, type in forms. Then it looks and finds all your forms.
I have good news for you, Jig. It's even easier than that, and I'll show you in a second. Really? So you can just fill that in and hit submit, and it's going to say, "Oh, thanks very much, lovely." Now I'm going to come on to where that has gone, but just very briefly to your point there about how easy it is to add a form in. We can just simply go. So maybe we want a form here. Then we go forms, and it will actually say there.
Okay.
New form.
There you go.
It'll do it all for you there and then.
You don't even have to go somewhere else.
You can do that all in SharePoint. Now that submission that I just did, Paddock Wood Hall Supplies, that information has been picked up in the background. There is a little bit of Power Automate here. To just complete honesty, there is a bit of Power Automate here to make it happen, but I put it together in Power Automate in probably less than 2 minutes. It's not the most complicated in the world. What we have is a list. There you go. There is the thing, and you see that seamless segue from home pages into lists. It was brilliant.
Well done.
Lists is a function I say to customers quite a lot, probably at least once a week. Why is that list in Excel? Roughly speaking, and actually that was what that blog article was about. Static lists of stuff that have no formulas and that are not doing financial calculations and all that sort of stuff. Get it out of Excel. Excel is
it's a formula thing.
It serves a purpose. Just storing lists of data isn't the best use for it. So we have lists online now in SharePoint, and we can just add new items into this as we go, and you'll see it's much more intuitive to add things in. I think the Acme, of course, being the purveyors of tools to Wile E. Coyote. And I can actually put people, you can set your data however you like, so you can see there's that new item, and then I can actually even start to have conversations about this and start to sort of track information. It's not full conversation functionality like Teams, but just for tracking comments and updates on records is quite useful.
And that's a fairly new feature, isn't it?
That is a fairly new feature. That has come in quite recently. You can see there that one, it's got that little speech mark there to say that there's a comment, where here there isn't. And then if I go into that, I can obviously add more as I go. Now, you can also, if you wish to, you might want to share specific records or draw attention to specific records, and you can copy links. So I can say, get me the link for this specific record. So, whoops, if I do copy that and open a new tab, it's going to take me, he says confidently, to that specific record. So if you want to say, no, this is the one I'm talking about, and share that with somebody, that kind of thing, really easy to do.
Yes, that's where it has got the power over Excel or something like that, because you are going, no, just look at this one.
Exactly, that's right, which is really hard to, well, it's not impossible, but it's a bit of a pain in Excel. You got that little share icon there. So when you hover over, you'll see this a lot in SharePoint, and you start seeing it some other places as well. That little share icon, the little sort of tray with an arrow out of it. Click on that, put somebody's name in. Hit send, and it will send an email. Mariam now in the background, can't demonstrate because I haven't got Mariam's account live, but Mariam will get an email that's going to, oh, you've had a record shared with you. And then you can then use this as well. So as I said, I used Power Automate to populate that from forms, exactly. But you can use Power Automate on the other side. So, okay, so when something changes in this record, do X. And you've got this automate function up here where you can create all sorts of flows and good things out of this. So a common one would be start an approval when a new item is added. So, and you can see how really easy this is to do. So if you were, say, you might have invoices. Invoices is a good example. Where you're saying when a new item is added on here, send it off for approval to the MD to get the invoice approved. And you can see it generates a lot of this stuff for you. So I can now just press save on that. Aha, there you go. And it's rejected it because of a assign to is required here, so that's fine. I can just assign that to Mariam, say, hit save. Yeah, so that's the one thing. It says, okay, who's going to approve it? It's a reasonable question to ask. And now every time I add a record to this, it's going to generate an approval. Well, we've done whole other webinars just on the approval process. Yeah. So it's really easy to connect that together. The other thing you can do, I'm not going to do it here, is you can customize forms. So the default form looks like that. It's a bit plain, but it's functional and it works. You can use Power Apps to customize those forms. So if you want to bring in other information, or you want to make the forms nice and give some branding or whatever it is you want to do, really easy to do. I'm not going to do it here because, again, I've done whole webinars on Power Apps, so we'll leave that on for now. Yeah, so that's your list content. So documents. So having said it's more than just a document store, it is a document store. It's a very big document store. It's becoming increasingly a dominant one in the way people do business. Now, one of the features that you can do here in SharePoint that you cannot do in a conventional file server, in addition to it's in the cloud, it's automatically backed up, all that good stuff, is these extra columns that you can add. So you can start to specify extra pieces of information that you want to know about a document. Why would you bother to do that? Well, historically, and again, this is a conversation I have quite frequently. Oh, we have a standard way. When we get a new customer, we do the folder structure, which I often refer to as folder structure of doom. So we add in a folder for the customer. We add under that folder, we add presentations, invoices, proposals, all stored by customer in this very sort of repeated folder structure. What I'm going to suggest is that this will make all of that go away. You don't need folder structures because you've got this. However, I'm going to back away from that very slightly. You do need folder structures if you've got differences in permissions. But even then, it's not really folder structures. What you need is different libraries. So you can within the same site have different document sections, and then you can have different permissions. So if, for example, your purchase invoices you didn't want seen, but your sales invoices anybody could see, stick them in different libraries. And then you can control the permissions like that really easily. Within a library, you can, as I say, add columns to your heart's content, all sorts of different, you can see the different types of column there. What are the different types of information that you're going to be gathering? So you can see the 3 documents that I've added in here. This is a blank PowerPoint presentation, and these are 2 books that I have downloaded from Gutenberg.org. If you're desperate for some reading, Gutenberg.org is about 1,500 out of copyright books that have been translated into various digital formats. I downloaded these 2 yesterday, Mystery of Edwin Drood by Charles Dickens and The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. So you weren't expecting high culture, were you?
No,
so you can see when you hover, you even get a little at a glance where the engine has generated kind of, all these look like key sentences in the document. I'll hover over the Mystery of Edwin Drood just for demonstration. You can see it's found different sentences. So in these columns, imagine you've got 1,000 documents in here that you're just banging them all in here in a big pile and then set in these columns. You might say, okay, I want to see every document that relates to Select Technology, and I can filter that down and get that. You might say, I'll just clear that. You might say, I want to see everything that is a presentation, regardless of the customer. And you can filter down like that. But you can then stack those filters as well. So you can say, show me all the presentations that we've delivered to Select Technology. There's only one in there. But you get the idea. And you can use, so you might want to say, I mean, we've seen ones that are, this document relates to product type, invoices in value range, and so on and so on. And you can add other fields in here, like so you can filter by modified by and hit particular dates. You can basically cut this around in any way you like. It's really, really powerful. And it means that you don't have to have these complicated folder structures because you store the information about the document next to the document. It's not sort of implied by where it's stored, which is a really I mean, it worked for a long time. People built their business processes around it. The problem is it's quite vulnerable. If I send you a file from a folder and say, oh, this is the file, but you haven't got access, you can't see that folder structure, it's gone, right? Where now I can send, say, Richard, and I'll send it to Richard because I have actually got his email open.
Now here you're just sharing a link to its location.
Correct.
You're not duplicating the file.
Yeah, and I can specify who gets to see that. So I might say, okay, I'm only saying this link will only work for Richard. Obviously, that's also governed by the permissions of SharePoint itself. So people with existing access or people in test drive with the link. So where you've got the constrained access, if you say people with the link, you're effectively widening the permission structure there. So you have to be a little bit careful with that, but not disastrously so. And you can.
With that permission structure, that if you say anybody with a link, that's only internally.
On that one there, that is anybody within the link inside your business.
So it's not going to work externally. Unless
it's not going externally. If you wanted to go externally, that is possible. You have to ask your IT admin to enable that. And then this becomes available. But they enable it. So the IT admin enables it at the site level. So if there are any IT admins listening, don't panic. You're not necessarily giving it to everyone. So for example, one customer I worked with, they set up a single site within SharePoint that had exterior sharing access specifically for the purpose of sharing. So they actually said, okay, what we'll do is when we want to share it externally, we'll put it in that site, which has got external sharing, and then we can send a link from there.
And that means that they externally can only access that element, that little bit of your SharePoint.
Well, in fact, they can only access that file.
Oh, that file.
They can't navigate around inside that folder at all. That link will take them to that specific file, nothing else.
That's good.
So you can see you've got options like allow editing, open and review only. If you allow editing, you can't block download. But if you want to say this file is essentially just for viewing purposes, you can do that. So all they can do is access it on the web and look at it. They can't download it, or they can download it, or you can say it's got to be, you can specify things like that.
Can you? Go ahead. Good question here. Can you stop someone from downloading the file if they are familiar with Share?
Yeah, that's the bit. So if you go into here, turn off allow editing, and then hit block download. Yeah. That's exactly what I will do. They will get a link that will allow them to see it in the browser, and that's it.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah,
it really does stop duplication and mucking up your file.
If you want to be able to review it, if you want them to be able to do any editing to it, you can't block the download.
Okay, so if they have to work on it, they can download it. And
yes, but if you've got someone that you're literally just sending them a file to view on the web and just view, then yes, you can.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Yeah. Now, one thing about documents, having said all this stuff about sites, do you then find yourself going, oh, I've got to know which site it's in order to find it? And of course, since I'm raising it, obviously the subject is no, you don't. So this search box here, if I do a quick search, and I'm going to search, I went looking inside these books for a term that seemed unlikely to be turning up in many places. There's a character in the Moonstone called Miss Rachel. So if I search here for Miss Rachel, you can see I'll get one result. And it's this document. And then I can open that document up. And so on. So all good. Now, if I don't know which one it's in, I've put the same document, as you can see here, into multiple sites. So you can see it there, you can see it there. So if I do that same search here, this is the Office portal. So you just see we're just at office.com. Don't worry about that auth2, that gets put on automatically. So if you just go to www.office.com and sign in, you'll end up here. If I did the same search here, and then hit show more results, it's going to find me 3 of them. So it's found the same document, but basically it's searching inside the document, it's searching the text of the document, not just the title and other things. And B, it's searching across all the SharePoint sites that you have got access to, which is crucial. So it's not searching absolutely everything. If there are sites that exist that you haven't got access to, then you don't get those results.
It's not going to search, it's going to leave them be.
Yeah. but everything that you can see, so that will include your OneDrive. It will include every SharePoint site that you've got access to. Okay. Now, I don't know if we've actually got someone called Rachel. So having said that, as you can see, there's a people section. No, there aren't any people called Rachel. And use this to, oops. Richard, it will bring me, there you go, there's obviously a reference to somebody called Richard inside this document as well. And then there's information about Richard, who Richard reports to, what he last worked on. And here, this is, so that Microsoft Inc., that record in that list.
So it's pulled up the record that he's created.
He submitted that record, so it's found that in the search. So it's finding all sorts of different information. It's searching all sorts of different things. And we can filter that down. If you go to the people tab and so on. You haven't done any news, but there is obviously somebody called Richard in that book. So yeah, so that search on office.com, it's not just a launch, it's not just a list of launch links, it does a lot more than that, and that search I think is really powerful. Going back to the subject of sites, so in this global, because this is a home page, it gets this bit, so the global navigation, so you can set this as kind of everybody's home page. Like that, and then they get this navigation here. And if I go to here, I've got this other site which is a project site. So the first one is sort of intended as an intranet communication site, so where we're telling people, here's some news, here's some stuff, here's some things we want to share with you, maybe company policies, HR policies, leave, whatever it might be. This is a project site, so as you can see, it's very, very generic. We haven't said what the project is, but so this project has come together. A team of people has been specified. So we've got a list of people who are specifically involved in that team. And then we've created various resources for the team. So there's a document store over here. There is an issue tracker. This is just another use of lists.
Okay.
So I could say,
I guess
the budget isn't confirmed yet. That seems like a high priority. And I'm going to assign it to poor old Mario, who seems to be getting everything today. It's reported today, and it's logged by Richard. So good. And then you can see you can add attachments and various bits and bobs, URLs if you want. You can see, bosh, right? So that's just another lists. We've also got a notebook. If I hit that, this is going to fire out now into OneNote. And it will generate, I haven't clicked that name before, so there you go. It's going to tell me. And it will generate a new notebook specifically for the project and share it automatically with everybody who is in that project group that we just looked at, these people. And then we've got tasks, which is a planner. If you're familiar with the planner tool, you can create tasks and allocate them to people and manage progress and so on. Really useful tool, planner. I'm not going to go into it in huge amounts of detail here. I'm just going to say planner, really useful tool. Go have a look if you haven't already.
Is that all quite easy to integrate into SharePoint?
Well, it is, because in fact all of this has been created from SharePoint. So if I wanted to create another plan, for example, so maybe we've got the project tasks, and then I don't know, we might separately want to say here's another plan for I don't know, product marketing. Let's call it product marketing. Yeah. Hit create.
And that's that done. It's
fine. Yeah, you don't have to do that out of Planner. All of this stuff has been created in this interface.
Just all connects with Planner, it connects with all the other programs, but it's all done within SharePoint. So you're not having to back and forth it at all.
Exactly. And when I created this, it also said to me, okay, do you want to create a team in Teams for conversation? Of course, it's 2021. Of course, I want to create a team in Teams.
Yeah.
So if I go to here, you'll see here is that team, and you'll see, look, there's that. Right, that's the wrong one. And you'll see there is the site. So you don't even, it's best to do the configuration in the SharePoint site, but once you've done the configuration, people don't really need to go to our browser to access. I'm using the browser version of Teams here for the very good reason I'm using the actual Teams to present this webinar. So I can't do it but it works just exactly the same in the desktop. So you can put that page as a tab into your team in Teams. Here I've got some specific news item that's also taken from the website, from the SharePoint site. If I go home,
That's down there, I see that.
News, there it is. Right, so that's it in SharePoint. There it is in Teams. The issue tracker.
So it's all be created in SharePoint to start with, and then you just fire it up in Teams and off you go, and never visit SharePoint essentially again. Exactly.
So you're kind of your if you forgive the term, but your day-to-day users can do everything through Teams. They don't need to go off. Oh, I've got to go to SharePoint for this, and possibly don't even need to know that it is SharePoint to a certain degree. You know.
That's right.
So
can you use the Teams search to search for files like you were earlier as well?
Very good question, to which I don't fully know the answer. There you go. No. So that is the one weakness. That's a very good call. Okay. Yeah, that part doesn't seem to work as well. I'd be surprised if that isn't coming soon, to be honest. But I don't know what, I'm going to check that and find out. Yeah, so you've got your planner as well. That's in here. These are the tasks that we looked at earlier. You know, we can change the group by and all that stuff. So we've got all the same functionality here that we had in SharePoint, bar the search. Thanks for that.
Sorry, that was a question from somebody. So
yeah, no, that's a legitimate one. So the other thing you can do by putting it into Teams, you can have conversations specifically around each section. So if I take this page, I can now start a conversation about that specific page, as well as in the general conversations. You can see those conversations all show up here as well. So if I reply here to this, which one was that? That was the site one. So if I go back to that, you can see, you know, it's the same conversation. It's just a different view of the same conversation. To Liddy's point about, I've just noticed Liddy's point about where did the landing site come from, which you've answered. There was a question about where did that landing site come from. Yes, I created this one specifically, but and this, I'm going to go a little bit off script now. Sorry about that. There's a thing called the SharePoint lookbook.
Well, that's me lost already.
Yeah. So the SharePoint lookbook.microsoft.com is a SharePoint provisioning service. Now you do need to be a tenant admin to do the provisioning. So this part does require a certain amount of IT, but it's actually only the permissions. You need the permissions of it. There's no particular IT skills required to do it. This site gives you all sorts of examples of different ways you might wish to use SharePoint. So organizational ones, department, team level, and actually the term, the landing and the basic design for it, there you go, it's that one, the landing. So although I created it manually, I did in fact rip it off out of here. So if you're sort of thinking of using SharePoint and you're interested in different ways of achieving what you want to do, I would strongly recommend lookbook.microsoft.com, And in fact, what I'll do to make it even easier, unless you've already done it, I'll put that in the announcements. Anyway, back to the script. So I've thrown myself now. Oh yes, Edge Home tab. That's the kind of the last part to really discuss here. So this is Microsoft Edge. Microsoft Edge was a bit of a laughing stock 12 months ago, or maybe just over 12 months ago. Microsoft realised that they had made a mistake with the first version of Edge, and they probably stopped doing it. And they basically created a whole new version of Edge, which hopefully most people will have now because it's being pushed in updates. So if you're not already using Edge, if you're still using Chrome and not using Edge, firstly, you will find the transition very easy because it is Chrome based. The new version of Edge is basically the same. The deep core software is the same as Google Chrome, but it has a couple of advantages for people who are using SharePoint. Firstly, you might have noticed that the tabs here, unless you go down the side, I like this. You don't have to do that. You can do it in the old-fashioned. There you go. It looks a lot like Chrome now, doesn't it? You can do it in that way if you like, but personally, I find that you get more space to actually work in rather than tabs, which most of the time you're never looking at. But if you sign into it with your work account, you can set it up. There's a couple of clicks involved. Basically, you go to here. You select informational and you can set it up like this. And as you can see, this home page, new tab in Edge, is going to give me kind of the key information of the day. So it's got my current calendar, join the email, email the organizer or join, the difference being that this one is a Teams meeting and this one is not. And those buttons sort of become available at the right time. So you see here, there's no option there. Here, I've got a join button. Recommended, so these are the documents that are getting the most activity. They would be, they're the only 3 documents in there. And then jumps out to your most frequent site. So that auto generates over time. That project site that I was looking at, that was created this morning. So this hasn't had time yet to pick that up and add it in. But basically, over time, it builds where are you most frequently in SharePoint? What do you spend most time doing? And as you can see, links out to key things. You can pin things as well. So if I wanted to say, okay, this one here, this notebook, I want to be in and out of that all the time, I can mark that as pinned, and then there it is. So it will always be there and available on the home page. Whereas the recent stuff, obviously, that's churning with time. That is files, again, it's from SharePoint, but as the link here suggests, that's also your OneDrive. And then this shared with me, so if anybody else were to do what we were just suggesting and share a document back to me, that would appear in this list. And there's even this Discover, which it hasn't got enough information to work with yet. But when I do that on my own account, it goes, oh, there's an interesting little, oh, look at that, that's interesting. Yeah. Just helps you discover information around. And it tells you the weather. You can't make it not tell you the weather. I don't really understand why. You can look out the window, it's current weather. But there you go. It does also then feed into general news and other things as well, which is, I'll be honest with you, a bit less useful.
You can customize all that.
You can customize a lot of this, yes, exactly. So you've got the personalize option there, so you can just say, actually, do you not just turn all of that off? I don't care. And you can see it's just, there you go, done. So
that's all feeding into SharePoint because Edge is logged into your, or in this case, into your account.
Yeah, I'm logged in there with this account, so it can see everything in Microsoft Office. The other thing that's just very quickly worth mentioning, I'm going to search now for. Oh, would help, wouldn't it? The Moonstone. I'm going to search for it on Bing. Now it's going to tell me You know, there you go. It's a book from 1868 by Wilkie Collins, etc. I didn't mean to open that page. But here, work.
It's search.
So that is in the same browser as, or in the same Bing search. One of the tabs is work, and that is actually reading down into your SharePoint and your. If you are signed into, you have to be signed into Bing for that, not the browser. Now I know, I'm sure people are laughing and saying, Bing? Who uses Bing? I agree, but if you're using SharePoint, it can be quite useful.
It's a bit like you going to that portal page, and instead of doing that, just using Bing and making your search there.
So if Bing is your default search engine, you can just go to the title bar and search for anything you like. And in fact, even in the main page, it's brought back Richard's information. It's also brought us a picture of Richard Nixon, which is nice. And then in the work section that we get into, and again, there's API services, there's that. So if you go down here, that's a document, that's a list entry, that's a task.
Yeah.
That is a event. So you get the idea that it's searching across all sorts of different things and finding the results that you want. And that, 10 minutes early, I think is pretty much everything I was planning to say.
Oh, brilliant. That sounds great. Well, if you have any questions, please pop them in. We do have a question here. I'm going to read it out. When we are sharing files in channels already in Teams, are these going into SharePoint without us knowing?
Yes. So that is a very good point. And actually, I'm going to build out on that a little bit. So when you say without us knowing, I mean, SharePoint is the background storage for Teams.
Okay.
So, I mean, I suppose it's not labeled, it's not made clear, although there's a button here that says open in SharePoint. So yes, that every channel is a folder in the main section. So if I do that open in SharePoint, so you can see here in Documents General, there's those two files. So if I now, I'm just going to quickly find an innocuous looking file that I can, there you go, I'll put that zip file in. So having put that in there.
So if you went to the share.
Sometimes I have to come out and come back for it to update. There you go. So you put it in SharePoint, it becomes available in Teams. You put it in Teams, it's in SharePoint.
So you're not then having to save it in two places, but it's just, and
Correct.
you don't realistically need to know where it is going in SharePoint. You just need to know that SharePoint is the storage system for Teams. Correct.
Yeah. So, but I think one way of approaching how you plan this. So I've talked about start with SharePoint and work towards Teams. There is another way to do it, which I will do now. I'm going to create a team very quickly, and I'm going to call it. What should I call it? Second project team.
There you go.
So, and the second project team. There you go. We've created a team. I'm going to add some members. Of course, it's going to be Richard and Mariam and whatever Tess is. What's Tess's person called? Can't remember.
I don't know.
Doesn't matter. So there we go. You see, it's added them into that team straight away. And hit close. And then maybe I'm going to add another channel called marketing. Add. Now, if I now go here, general files, open in SharePoint, you see you've got a full SharePoint site there with a home page.
So you can go from building.
You can go the other way. You can start with Teams and work backwards to SharePoint rather than
SharePoint
to SharePoint and work forwards to Teams. And I tend to recommend that approach. The reason I ask is you can search for files in Teams within the channels using the search bar is the comment. Yes, but you can't do the global search. And I think the reason that failed previously,
because you were looking for a document.
I was looking for something in the wrong place, and so you can certainly search here. If I just go, see, there you go. I think, to be fair, some of this, we put this together in the last day. So to be fair, some of the AI doesn't always. It can take 2 or 3 days sometimes to catch up, and it particularly, I think, content within files. Yeah, that's where we're struggling a bit. There we go. We did find it. That's why it didn't work. It's because it went to messages. Correct. So whoever that anonymous person is that pointed that out, thank you very much. You're quite right. Actually, one other thing that I'll quickly discuss, if I may, if I've got time.
Yeah, of course.
In the landing, let's clear that and come back to documents. If I were to decide to, so you can see that was yesterday at 11:37 AM. If I decide I want to add a new version of that document, it's locked. There's always something. What I'm trying to get to, let me have a look at the version history here. There you go, that's fine anyway. So we've got multiple versions. So the current form of that document, I've done a bit of formatting on. I'm going to close all the other SharePoint documents while that loads. It's quite a big document, to be fair, so yeah, so we're going to be able to think about that. Now, having done a bit of formatting, I may decide that actually I didn't want that. So I can see the version history here. Now, if you compare this with what it was like in file, what it still is like in file and print servers, you've overwritten with the wrong version, and then you go, oh no, it's got the only way to do it really is to go and retrieve it from a backup tape or something. You know, it can be quite an unpleasant process. Here I could just say, actually, okay, so version 5 is the current one, but actually I think I want to go back to version 3. Hit restore, and it'll say you're about to replace the current version with that. Okay. There's always one, isn't there? Trust me, I've done this so lots of times. Let me try it with a different document. Maybe it's something to do with the locking.
Are you able to restore a document, but as duplicate, almost keep the one that you're keep it on the site, resave it as something else?
Yeah, let me do a restore here just to. I think that's because the file is locked because I tried to open it. There you go. So you can see it's restored that up, made that the current version. So we now have a version 6, which is identical to version 3. If you want to, you basically copy it.
Yeah, you want to copy it because you might have something that's in the latest one.
Yeah,
and you kind of want to pick that out, pick it into the into an earlier version.
So you can either right there and copy to. So you can either copy it to somewhere else in SharePoint or OneDrive really easily, or if you're going to say I'm going to copy it to the current library, copy here, and it just adds a 1 on the end.
Okay, so you're not just rolling back a file, you can roll it back and put it on the side.
Yeah.
If you want to keep.
And you've got request sign off there. If you wanted to create, I don't know, maybe you're creating a presentation for a customer and you want to request sign off from your marketing director before you actually send it out. Again, that's a kind of pre-built It's going to do the same thing. Who am I requesting sign off from? There you go.
And then it'll fire off an email to them.
It'll fire them an email. Please review and approve, and hit run flow. And in fact, because I've got Richard here, I can tell you that if I go to approvals, it might take a few seconds for it to appear. There you go. It did take a few seconds to appear. It's actually come up in my Teams now. It said, please approve this, and I can approve that. And when I approve it, it gets marked as approved here, but then when I go back to SharePoint, it's marked as approved in there as well.
Oh, that sounds brilliant.
I think it's pretty cool myself, but there you go. I'm a nerd.
It's all right.
2 o'clock.
Well, he's literally exactly 2 o'clock. If anybody has any more questions, please, got peas here. Please pop them in the Q&A box. Yeah. If it doesn't look like we're going to have any more questions, and I think I've asked many, taking you off course a little bit. So I'm going to say thank you very much to everyone for joining us. Thank you, Nick, for providing so much amazing information. And I'm just going to pop our details onto the screen there. So if you would like to contact us, there's our email address and LinkedIn. Please connect with us. And we hope you have a very good day and a pleasant afternoon.